The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Thursday, April 20th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to begin with the spoiler candidacy for President of the United States of Robert Kennedy Jr., son of Robert Kennedy and nephew of JFK. Of all of the Kennedys, we got stuck with this guy, the anti-vax, pro-Putin, conspiracy theorist nut job, who is doing his best to ensure that Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, either would do fine for him. What he wants to make sure is that this country does not have a Democratic president in 2024, not because he cares about blue versus red so much, but because he is a part of this right-wing global reactionary movement. He is doing his part, and his part is fundamentally rooted in conspiracy theory, anti-vax messaging, and the undermining of our stability in this nation. He is a spoiler candidate who, quite honestly, I believe is reeling still in the aftermath of the assassination of his father, living with that trauma. And now that trauma is made manifest because he is carrying out a vendetta against this country, doing the bidding of Steve Bannon, Roger Stone. The reason I can make these statements about him is because who supports him and the outcome of his goal, his agenda. According to Fox News, he has taken, Robert Kennedy gains a sizable chunk of Biden voters at presidential launch. And this is according to a USA Today poll. They also lump in Marianne Williamson in this conversation. Long shot Democrat candidate Marianne Williamson took home 5% of Biden's supporters. So let's be sure the presidential candidacy running against Joe Biden right now is 100% about weakening Joe Biden's ability to beat Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. And again, they don't care which one. Robert Kennedy doesn't care who wins in the Republican side so long as one of them wins. Why? Because the Republican Party has given itself over to the global right-wing reactionary movement. They have given themselves over to the anti-vaxxers. The Republican Party has given themselves over to the theocratic fascists. The party is underneath complete control of the very worst factions in this country and on this planet. And so Robert Kennedy Jr. is there for no other reason. If you have followed him through this pandemic, you would 100% understand the type of Machiavellian agenda that this man has. And to be certain, the support that he has, the support comes from the right in this country, the extreme right in this country, as evidenced by yesterday when his campaign speech announcement was not carried by Facebook. Who took to Twitter to cry censorship, to cry foul? The right-wing echo chamber, the very same right-wing echo chamber that is doing its very best to vilify the black community, the LGBTQIA community, that's doing its best to ban the teaching of black history. That same echo chamber was the one promoting Robert Kennedy Jr. yesterday. There's a reason Steve Bannon supports this guy. There's a reason that Roger Stone supports this guy. That's because they 100% expect him to be a spoiler candidate to neutralize the Democratic Party in order to bring victory to Donald Trump. And I want to say something very clearly here. I don't really care about the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party hasn't really done a whole lot for me, except for not be fascist. And I'm going to be honest with you. That's just about enough in this late hour of this American empire in the year of our Lord 2023 as we get ready to go into 2024. I said this back in 2020 at the beginning of Joe Biden's campaign. I needed a president who was not aligned with or completely a fascist, because that's what Donald Trump is. That's what Ron DeSantis is, so much more than Donald Trump. We have real, tangible threats to democracy vying for power right now in this moment. And the modicum of stability that we have, I say modicum because we are far from a stable nation, but we have enough stability right now to go in the right direction. We still have enough institutional structure. We still have enough functioning levers of democracy for us to maintain a democracy for many generations to come, except for the fact that we have teetering in the balance, waiting for an opportunity to jump into full control of this country, a theocratic fascist movement that is flanked by an anti-vax, know-nothing, imbecilic movement that is also flanked by the right-wing reactionaries who are genuinely gearing up to wage holy war against anyone that is not a white Christian man or anyone who does not capitulate to the agenda of white Christian men. That's the reality of what's waiting in the wind. And this is what Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to ensure comes into power, because those are the people who support him, the right-wing reactionaries, as evidenced by how many of them came out to support him yesterday. The anti-vaxxers, because he is the chief. He is the commander-in-chief of the anti-vax movement, particularly the one that targeted the black community. Okay? There were specific tactics that Robert Kennedy Jr. engaged in during COVID-19 to ensure that black people would not take COVID-19 seriously, and black people died. So let's look at the coalition of Robert Kennedy Jr., the right-wing reactionaries that support him, the anti-vax movement of which he is a top of, and of course the theocratic fascists who don't care about any of that. They just want to bring Armageddon so that they can hasten what they believe to be the second coming of Jesus Christ. My God, when you really put these things side by side and you consider what's going on and you look at how effective the conservative machine is in using propaganda, but also machinations, their technique, their strategy. They've actually, as ignorant as they are in public, they are equally brilliant in the background running their games, because Robert Kennedy Jr. is one of their chess pieces. 13% that he's knocking off from Joe Biden. Put that on top of the 5% that Marianne Williamson is taking away. The only question is whether or not they're going to insist on running third-party campaigns when they lose in the primaries. But generally speaking, to primary, history has shown us with Jimmy Carter, a primaried incumbent president is severely weakened going into the general election. That's how we got Ronald Reagan 40 years ago, and that's how they're going to try to bring us a new fascist in 2024. Speaking of theocratic fascists, who knew it was so profitable to be a bigot? Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, in the aftermath of being hacked, has gone on a tirade and intentionally, I was going to say unintentionally, but he leaked how much he makes on YouTube alone a month. Matt Walsh, the premier theocratic fascist, it's in his bio. He's proud to be a theocratic fascist. The lead voice trying to get LGBTQ people killed in this country, particularly the trans community. The guy whose bestie, Michael Knowles, called for the eradication of transgenderism. That guy makes $100,000 a month on YouTube. Listen to him as he gloats about losing that money, because guess what? YouTube is not even his primary source of revenue. You know, what he makes at Daily Wire probably dwarfs that when you consider the Daily Wire offered Steven Crowder, a ridiculously pathetic comedian, so-called comedian. What's up with all these really, really pathetic comedians who do so well because they spew bigotry like he and Jimmy Dore? Steven Crowder got offered $50 million from the Daily Wire. So don't feel bad for Matt Walsh, who is now losing that $100,000 a month from YouTube because he violated their terms of service. He's using it as a way to build himself more, because he's letting the world know he would much rather never get that $100,000 a month back from YouTube, so long as he could stand against the tyranny of transgenderism. Take a listen in.
These institutional efforts to silence me and us have continued all the way up to this week. So in fact, less than a day before I was hacked, we received word from YouTube that I had committed a series of alleged violations of their terms of service and also of their ad partnership guidelines, which will now lead to my demonetization and potentially being banished forever from the platform. There were a number of violations they claimed. They'd only tell us about 3 of them. All 3 of them, coincidentally, had to do with Dylan Mulvaney. Now, I don't know, just coincidentally, YouTube decided you're not allowed to say anything about Dylan Mulvaney. YouTube has decided that I'm not allowed to use biologically accurate language when discussing Dylan or presumably any other trans-identified person. Now, of course, there is a way out of this jam. You know, the big tech, they're very generous, and they'll give you a potential off-ramp. So if I simply respect the preferred pronouns and I stop accurately gendering people, then I can likely continue to do my show on the platform. I can get it remonetized after, a short probationary period. And I can continue making over $100,000 a month on YouTube ads.
$100,000 a month on YouTube ads. Listen, I wonder how many people realize that when we say that billionaires pay millionaires to spread news to keep you in line, right? News, fake news, propaganda to keep you in line. We're also talking about those YouTubers because they are beyond millionaires, multi-millionaires. I mean, for Steven Crowder, who is like, I mean, couldn't make it 5 seconds on the Apollo Theater stage as a comedian to get offered $50 million from this very same company, shows you the kind of money they are awash in. They have more money than what they know to do with. And so what are they doing? They're dropping a few crumbs. I'm going on a little tangent here. Come with me. They're dropping a few crumbs in the black community. They've got a couple of new voices that they are promoting, diligently to try to create this appearance that black people are in line with this right-wing reactionary conservative movement. The Heritage Foundation, they've hired a couple of black folks. You got you've got quite a few figures that are rising to the top because they have so much money to give away. They're making so much money. I mean, who knew bigotry was this profitable? I'm sure YouTube did. I mean, YouTube notices that they're going to be missing their share, their cut of his ad revenue, right? But they allowed it to go on so long because he was so profitable, because bigotry is profitable. To be hate-filled is the easy thing to do. There's no big revelation in that. There's nothing, groundbreaking about that thought. We could just look throughout history. Hatred is always profitable because it is the one emotion that drives people beyond any reason, any rationality, any normal thinking. It's the one. Anger is the thing that gets people killed. And so if it's powerful enough to move people into rage so that they can harm somebody or take someone's life, of course it's powerful enough to have them sit down in front of a computer or in front of their mobile device and watch and consume hate-filled content all day long. So in this fight that we're in, we're not just fighting against these individuals. We're fighting against an algorithm that absolutely understands how profitable this hatred is. So and I don't say this to discourage anyone, especially not any of you who are like new YouTube creators, content creators. I mean, you still just have to do the work. You may never be rewarded with the financial benefits that hatred and bigotry benefits people like Matt Walsh to the tune of $100,000 a month just on YouTube alone. But that's why I believe we're going to win. It is counterintuitive. We're outgunned. We're definitely outfunded by magnitudes of order. Our reach is severely limited when you consider that someone like Tim Pool could have 60,000 live viewers, 70, 80,000 live viewers on YouTube. Someone as brain dead as Tim Pool, right? So we're outgunned, we're outnumbered, we're outfinanced. How do I know we're going to win? Because these people really believe in their own hype. I was going to say something along the lines of the universe. Save that for the patrons episode. Patreon.com/the BPD show. I'll tell you why the universe is going to assist us in this victory. But when these people are this confident, look at Ron DeSantis in Florida. He is so confident in the victories that he's gotten over the last 2 years that he is now making missteps. And it's I could actually give you a scripture reference that helps you to understand it most clearly. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit goes before the fall. Conservatism is going to lose because it is reveling right now so much in their victories, in the amount of money that they can make, that they are completely blind to the reality that they are living in their own echo chamber. Now, here's the threat. The real threat is, do we have enough time and do we have enough resources to run a left flank on these people, to actually be here long enough to survive the onslaught of money that they're pouring into every demographic to give conservatism the appearance of diversity, to try to appeal to more black people because it looks like, appeal to the masses. You see all these black people who are now working for all of these conservative organizations who are being funded. You got the Vernon Jones of the world. You got the Byron Donalds of the world. You have the Diamond and Silks of the world. Well, you got Silk now, but you understand what I'm saying. You have the conservative movement pouring cash, boatloads of cash into various communities to try to give the appearance of diversity. If we can survive that, if we can outlast that, if our various communities can withstand the push of all of these COINTEL bros that are being sent into the black community, sent into the Muslim community, sent into the Jewish community, all of these, have you ever noticed every week there's a new demographically specific character that is being promoted by conservatism to promote white supremacy? That's the thread. Their Achilles heel, though, is their overconfidence because they're awash in money. I mean, they are Scrooge McDuck swimming through their coins with money. And that's why they're going to be blindsided by the reality that their money only goes so far. People can only be influenced so much because at the end of the day, their gut instinct tells them what's really right and what's really wrong.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
Here we go. Very special welcome to our newest patron, Mary C. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. This entire patron party is for you. Turn it up. Oh. I know you better be bopping, Mary. Whoa. And here we go. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, none of the commercial interruptions, and you get access to our patron parties. Our bi-weekly patron party, patreon.com/The BPD Show, and we will be back right after this commercial break. Unless you're a patron. In which case you don't have any commercials. Bounce.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Yep. I want to go down back to Atlanta, Georgia, where we have been covering the Cop City protests that has been led by tree defenders. And I want to read from our friend Kamal Franklin's Twitter timeline, as well as a summary by Fox 5 there in Atlanta, showing that the young individual, who was killed by police, Manuel Tehran, he was killed in the exact opposite fashion than what the original police reports and news press conferences made it seem. And we said this at the very beginning. If you go back to that episode where we discussed this, we discussed how it is that the media and the police intentionally make it seem as though this young person tried to harm them. Breaking news, the official autopsy is released showing that Manuel Tehran, the forest defender, didn't have gunpowder residue on their hands and had at least 57 gunshot wounds in their body, including the hands, torso, legs, and head. Kamal Franklin said on his Twitter timeline, "This is murder. #StopCopCity." Now, for those of you who may not be up to date on Cop City, it is the 85-acre, $90 million give me to the cops in the state of Georgia. And in actuality, cops from all around the country who are scheduled to come into this city that has a helipad, that has a movie theater, that has a gun range, that has everything that they could dream of. I'm sorry, did I say movie theater? I mean a movie film set. They're going to be able to film movies on this location as they are, quote unquote, training police officers. And the tree defenders, the forest defenders, they have been in the forest for at least a year now, trying to ensure that these public grounds are protected, not only from an environmental perspective, but also from the rage of the police state. And so now, as we see after all of the press releases, the mayor of Atlanta, black man, along with the police chiefs, along with the Atlantic Journal-Constitution, along with all of the media outlets who forwarded the press release from the police report unchallenged, gave the entire impression to the entire world that Tehran was the aggressor who shot at police officers, when in reality, as the other witnesses stated, they had their hands up. The autopsy is now confirming what we suspected. But this is not, we suspected it because it's par for the course. This police state is able to get away with murder. They have mastered the art of neutralizing outrage by making sure that every press release has the language sufficient enough to make it seem as though the police didn't do anything wrong, obviously, but the victim has always done something wrong in every police report. This is why you can't believe police reports when you read them. This is why the media absolutely has to stop forwarding these pieces of propaganda, this propaganda. Police reports are propaganda. They should not be taken as if they are the law, even if they are being forwarded by officers deputized by the law. And so now we see that just like witnesses said, they had their hands up when they were shot by police. But that doesn't matter. You know why? Because the police understand if you can neutralize the immediate outrage in the aftermath of whoever you killed. Ask the people of Gulfport, Mississippi. Ask the people who are protesting on behalf of 15-year-old Jaheim McMillan. Ask the people who had their social media accounts neutralized. They had no ability to even go live to share the protest, to share their concern. That's because the police have mastered the art of neutralizing the outrage that comes in the aftermath of them killing one of us. And now we see with the Cop City protesters, the tree defenders, Manuel Tehran was killed, was murdered with his hands up, with their hands up. Forgive me, their pronouns are they, them. They were killed by the police. So what's going to be done about it? Well, the police are just going to go on like nothing happened because they have mastered the art of getting away with murder. And for what reason? Well, in this particular case, is so that they can have an 85-acre, $90 million playground for them to go and pretend to be soldiers and film movies.
Pretty white TT, 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 pretty white TT.
You guys want to see you want to see a dead body? Take a listen to this debate, quote unquote debate, between Byron Donald, the Republican from Georgia, and Jamal Bowman, from the representative from the state of New York, as they discuss systematic racism. And Jamal Bowman leans in on the economics of systematic racism. Take a listen.
An economic system where two of the wealthiest Americans own more wealth than the bottom 50% of the country. We have levels of economic inequality that are worse than the Gilded Age. To truly invest in poverty, you have to reverse the impact of the disproportionate distribution of wealth that happened post-slavery. The Homestead Act, which gave the entire West to white Americans, both native and foreign born, that kept black people from getting that land, those homes, and building wealth. Black banks have never been invested in the way that, let's say, the Bank of Italy was invested in, that now has become Bank of America, one of our largest banks. You've had Jim Crow, black laws, KKK, mass incarceration. You've had globalization where we, with the race to the bottom, chasing low-cost labor all over the world, taking industrial jobs out of the black communities. You know what they brought back in? Cops and drugs and the numbers game. You gave us an illegal economy and cops, but never repaired the harm that you have caused, which is why mostly gun trafficking is trafficking in the black and brown communities, and black and brown people are killing each other with it. So when I talk about dealing with the issue of poverty, I'm talking about reparations, repairing the historic harm investing in schools equitably. Right now, if you live in a wealthy community, you get more money for your school than you live in a poor community. And the poor community is only poor because they were redlined by the United States government via the GI Bill. Come on now.
Now, let me address a couple of your things. The first thing you said is about income inequality. Listen, of course, incomes are not equal because everybody has different levels of talent, ability. People have started in different parts in life. We both acknowledge that.
Yes.
I will never sit here and say
some
that.
Were slave masters,
Jamal,
Okay.
I'm never going to sit here and say that black people in America started at the same place of other people in America. I'm not going to make that point because we both know that is not true.
Well, what is your point then? That the last voice was Byron Donald. Because at the core of it, Byron Donald is a black conservative man. There is a high value price tag being paid to black men who are really ready to go out here and do the bidding of conservatism. Ask Jason Whitlock. Ask Byron Donald. Ask Herschel Walker, who can't be found in the state of Georgia anymore. He's gone. He was there just long enough to run for Senate. Nobody can find. He hasn't been spotted in the state of Georgia since he lost. The bounty that is being paid for black men who will go out here and do the bidding of conservatism and sit on television and look as stupid as Byron Donald did, as Jamal Bowman had to educate this black man on the reality of what happened in this country. See, one thing I'm not going to do is play this game, especially with black men. Like, if you're going to look me dead in the eye and say that the problem in the black community is a result of some moral failing in black people, no, we're not going to. I don't personally have time. God bless you, Jamal Bowman, for actually taking the time to help explain this to someone who's being paid to not understand it. It's hard to convince someone of something when they're being paid to not believe it. And this is what Byron Donald, this is what the black men who are doing the bidding of conservatism, they're doing. It's just another way. You know what it is? It's just another hustle. The black men who are currently lining up to take a paycheck from conservatism to do the bidding of white supremacy, they're no different than the drug dealers in the black community who just are finding a way for them to survive, are finding a way for them to get up, finding a way for them to make a bag. And right now, the number one way to make a bag as a black man in this country is to go out here and do the bidding of conservatism. That's it. So I see no difference between the poison that is being spewed by black men who are being paid to go around the country and to attack the moral integrity, to suggest that there's some kind of moral failing. Byron Donald's first response to income inequality in that clip was to say that the reason income inequality exists is because there's a difference in income of skills. Are we being serious now when we see that the absolute most brain dead, mind-numbingly stupid Neanderthals are fomenting to the top of whiteness? And you want to turn around and say black folks ain't working hard enough? Our skills suggest that our skills are the reason there's income inequality? Versus the litany of things that Jamal Bowman just wrote, that just read him for filth with. That's because, well, again, it pays good money to be willing to tuck your blackness in and to sit up there and look like a complete Vernon Jones. That's what he looks like. A complete moron like Vernon Jones out of the state of Georgia who sold his soul for a paycheck. I get it, brothers. It's hard out in these streets. I mean, if I had less integrity, I'd probably go take a conservative check myself because y'all are making $100,000 a month on YouTube being bigoted. I mean, if I didn't have integrity, I probably could be a billionaire just off of conservative grift. But my soul is worth a lot more than 30 pieces of filthy silver. My blackness is worth a whole lot more. My integrity and my appeal for justice, my desire for justice. If we got to go through a couple of broke days in order to get justice, that's quite okay with me. But for some people, they just can't fathom being broke in this economy when they can go out and get a fat check from the Heritage Foundation. Isn't that right, Delano? And I get it. I get it. If you're looking for, I guess when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? When you're in the American Empire, do as the American imperialists do, which is pay no attention to how you get your wealth. Pay no attention to the genocide that you had to do to create this country and to create the wealth. Pay no attention to the slavery that was necessary for you to create this wealth. Pay no attention to the amount of your soul that you have to sell to get that check, black men, for conservatives. Patrons, stay tuned. Everyone else, we'll see you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.